Yeah,
If you can throw a fastball safely, you can throw a sinker safely.
What's going on, guys? Coach Matt and YouGoProBaseball. I'm here with Craig Stem, and we're talking about how to throw a one-seam sinker, a nasty one-seam sinker, 95 mile an hour, making hitters look silly. We're gonna talk about it in this video. Before we get into it though, I wanna talk about something really cool that Craig's got going on. He makes these watch straps, whether you got an Apple Watch, a Fitbit, whatever kind of watch you're rocking, makes them out of baseballs, out of gloves, really cool stuff. I'll leave the link down below where you can check it out. But let's get into it. I want to talk about the one-seam sinker. First time I ever heard of the one-seam sinker was from this kid, Sebastian Bent. Shout out, Sebastian. Great video. I'll leave the link down below where you can watch that video, but you also throw a one-seam sinker. Can you tell us your grip, your thought process, how you're trying to throw it, how you're trying to make it move, how it works? Give us all the details.
Yeah, I'll start with the grip. All I do is take the long seam here and I straddle it with my fingers. I don't actually grab a seam. I have my thumb directly underneath this thing. Some people do this a little bit differently, but for me, when I come through to my release point, I get my hand almost in this cocked position and take my glove off. And then when I throw this, I'm just trying to get extension and rip down, but I'm ripping with this ball on my fingertips, right? And I'm trying to give it, you see this spin right here? You can see the one seam, how it's going right in the middle of the ball. If you get that spin coming out of your hand like this, all of a sudden, this thing's gonna take off that way, right? For me, the harder I throw it, the better it is.
So why does that work? Like, it kind of seems counterintuitive. Like when I was throwing, I was a big sinker guy, but I was a two-seam sinker guy. And for me, I had to rip over top of it to get that movement. Why? This doesn't seem like as forced, but still nasty movement. Why is it, how does it work?
Right, so I mean, anytime you throw a ball, you're gonna pronate, right? So I might be thinking, yeah, I'm ripping this way, and I'm doing that, but my hand is going to pronate at the end. If it comes off the end of my fingers though, it's just giving the ball, it's giving the ball the right spin to just kind of die, you know? It actually is a low spin rate pitch for me. Some guys have a super high spin rate on a sinker and it moves a ton. For me, it's a very low spin rate. It comes off the end of the fingers and just, it comes out super fast arm speed, and then it's not a changeup. It's, like I said, still hard, but the lack of spin causes it to die.
Lack of spin, so less spin rate. So for me, I was trying to spin the crap out of the sinker when I was throwing it.
And that's normal for a guy that's sidearm that's gonna crank over the top of it. Absolutely.
Right. And then you've got less laces, because you got that one seam, you got less laces going through the air.
I don't even grab a seam. I'm straddling it. So I don't even grab a seam. So of course it's not gonna spin much, right?
That's sweet. So now what are you doing, like when you're throwing, like what's your philosophy with using the pitch? Like how are you trying to attack hitters with the one seam sinker?
Right, so 99% of the time I'm gonna stick to my strengths. And even with a four seam, I am better on my arm side. So inside to a righty, away from a lefty. Unless a guy comes in the box and I know that this guy, his strength is where I'm trying to throw it and he's beaten me with it before, I'm basically just gonna throw it to my spot, which is arm side. In my pregame bullpen, if I'm starting a game, I'm throwing 65, 70% of my pitches are gonna be arm side sinkers, because that's my bread and butter, right? So once I start throwing that thing inside, letting it run off the plate and in on righties' hands, away from lefties, I'm just trying to get ground balls. Now, if I get ahead in the count, then it's time for me to start mixing in the slider, which starts in the same spot and goes the other way. But hitters know, when I come out and I just start slinging those things in the same spot over and over and over again, as soon as they step in the box, it's on everybody's mind. And then when I start throwing something else, it just makes it a whole lot easier on me.
Right, messing them up. Disrupting their timing and balance. We talked about that in another video, great video, 4 traits of a successful pitcher. I'll leave a link down below where you can watch that one, really great video. Talk about your four seam versus your sinker. Like when you switched during your career to a sinker to get more movement.
Right.
Are you still throwing a four seam now, or are you only throwing sinkers?
I still throw four seams.
Okay.
The reason for that is just to change eye levels, right? So once again, if I come into a game and I start throwing, just everything is just running arm side and hard, and then I go to a four seam and I throw it about waist high, comes out of my hand, hitters are trying to see the ball up and then attack it as it's sinking and trying to drive it to the outfield, they're gonna swing right underneath that thing, get an easy pop up or swing and miss. And it's really a lot easier for me to drive a four seam glove side inside to a lefty, outside to a righty. If I wanna paint that outside corner, I'm not gonna try to throw a sinker because there's a lot of room for error. If I miss, it's coming right back over the plate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was the same exact way. I could eat up righties. Like a righty would come up to the plate, I'd be like, write him in the book, he's out. Like, that's how confident I was with my sinker,
right,
because they would look silly. But lefties I struggled with, because originally what I would do was I was just sinking everything. Sinker, sinker, sinker. But what the lefties started doing was just leaning over the plate, boom, driving it in the gap, going extra base hits on me. So I had to develop something to try to keep them off of that. So what I started doing was going early in the count with a four seam up and in. Even if it was a ball, I just wanted to show them something, get them off the plate so they're not diving over and trying to just poke that ball out into left center. And that was a game changer for me.
Can't be predictable, right?
You can't be predictable. And like we talked about, disrupting timing and balance. When you go hard in like that, you know, that's messing up his balance. A batter, lefty batter, if you're coming up in here, who's trying to dive out and hit that sinker, and you go here, he's gonna come up like this.
Yeah.
And he's not gonna be too comfortable. Imagine getting in there, especially a guy throws 99, 95, 99, working 93, 95, like that's scary. Forget about it, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're not gonna be comfortable in the box. So you really gotta, as a pitcher, disrupt that timing and balance. If you can do that, you're gonna be a successful pitcher. The one seam sinker is a great way to do it. Again, I threw a two seam sinker. I got tons of videos on how to throw a two seam sinker, but try out the one seam sinker first, see how it feels, see what works for you. Do you got any other thoughts or tips on the one seam and how you're trying to get guys out, or maybe even a good topic to talk about with, like, how do you teach it to a young guy who comes in who never threw it before? Like, you have anything else?
Right, so the hardest thing about the one seam, I think, for somebody who's never thrown it before, the way I throw mine, I don't know if people throw it differently than me. I haven't really come across that many that do, to be honest, but I don't grab a seam. So it's really tough for some people to get used to the idea of getting a ball out and not ripping a seam. But the biggest one for me, and when I throw a four seam, I mean, I'm trying to grab the seam and I'm trying to rip it as hard as I can and get this thing to spin. With this pitch, I try to throw it as hard as I can, but I'm getting out front and I'm just trying to get it on the end of my fingertips as far as I can, and then late, fast arm. When I get out here, I rip it and it kind of comes off my fingertips and just takes off that way. Visualize in your head what you want it to do and get out on the front, and the first time it moves the way you want it to move, you'll have it.
What is your pressure? Like, are you like squeezing hard? Are you holding it like an egg, somewhere in between?
Holding it like an egg, exactly. I have my thumb here on the bottom seam, and then when I throw this thing, at the very end, it's just on my fingertips, and at that point is when I apply pressure evenly. Two fingers are stronger than one, right? They gotta have even pressure. If you get on this finger, it's gonna cut. If you get on this finger, it's gonna run. I want it to sink. Right? So I want both fingers strong at the end, fingertips, see my knuckles there, boom, that's it.
So when you're throwing this pitch, are you trying to get straight vertical movement, or are you getting some arm side movement? Like, how much is it, like straight sideways, straight down, or kind of somewhere in between? What's the best scenario for you?
Right, I think it's best when it's a combination of both, right? When it's opposite of a slider, like a screwball, right? That's kind of what we're going for. Straight down, I mean, you can manipulate it. If you want to come straight over the top and pull straight down, it's gonna go straight down. If you wanna throw it from over here, it's gonna run more. It all depends on your hand position. The way that I throw it, 99% of the time, I'm trying to get arm side run and heavy sink. So I'm trying to go inside to, like, running into a righty and away from a lefty, but I want more sink than run, if that makes sense.
Right, absolutely. I was the same way. So I was a sinker slider guy and then mixed in a forkball later on.
Right.
And you're a sinker slider guy and have a splitter.
Right.
But you go a little wider with it.
It's basically a fork.
Okay, so we're exactly the same.
I refuse to call it a fork because I don't know, it just doesn't sound like a splitter's like, oh, it's a power pitch, but it's a fork.
Well, I used to call mine a splitter.
Right.
And then I get a bunch of comments, that's a forkball, that's a fork.
Yeah,
so I just started calling it a forkball. By the way, when you throw a pitch, you can call it whatever you want, just let the catcher know what you're talking about. Because I've had guys say, you know, I throw a curveball and it's more like a cutter or more like a slider. So as long as the catcher knows what you're calling it and what it does, who cares what you call it?
Just know the catcher is probably saying it's not a curveball, but yeah, sure.
Right, okay, I know what it's doing now. We're on the same page. Make sure you're on the same page with your guy. But that's another good point. When I was trying to throw the sinker, and I know the answer for you too, because we talked about it already, but we're trying to throw that sinker and that slider to look exactly the same, just go two different ways.
Right.
Right?
Exactly right.
What, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, it's individual basis, right? My slider is not so much sweeping as it is depth, right? So naturally, I want my sinker to mirror that slider, to come in this way and go here, and then the slider come in this way and go here, right? The exact same movements, but opposite. If you have a big sweeping slider, then maybe you should try to get a 2-seam with run, right? It's just kind of case-by-case basis. And if you have figured out a great sinker, you should maybe tinker with your off-speed pitches. You got a good sinker with good depth, tinker with your off-speed pitch that has good depth as well, that goes the other way.
What does your splitter, your forkball do? Is it more vertical?
Oh, it kind of knuckles and then drops.
Okay,
right?
so same exact.
It's like it's a fork.
So
right?
basically what we're trying to do is boom, 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 all out of the same hole right here, and the hitter is gonna have to decide halfway to him which one of the 3 it is.
Right.
And if we can do that, we're being a successful pitcher. When it looks different, when all 3 pitches look different, it's easier for that guy to hit the ball. So 1-seam sinker, man, great pitch. Not very stressful on your arm, would you say?
Easy. No, not at all. Not at all.
What age would you say guys can throw it? All ages?
All ages.
Yeah.
Man. If you can throw a fastball safely, you can throw a sinker safely.
I think I say that all the time too. Even with the 2-seam sinker, I think it's personally even more safe if you're not forcing it. If you're not like trying to force it.
If you're timing it up the same as your 4-seam, and your 4-seam is not stressful for you, which, I mean, that's going to be up to your coaches to figure out, I guess. But if you have a good arm action with a 4-seam, the 2-seam is no more dangerous, or the 1-seam, I guess. Yeah.
I agree 100%. So check it out. If you never thrown a 1-seam, check it out. Try the grip, try the pressure. Try throwing it. It's a really cool pitch. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for the information on the 1-seam sinker. Guys, go down below if you want to get in touch with Craig. I'll leave all his information down below. He trains some guys. Currently, he's in the Asheville, North Carolina area, but he's still playing, so he's going to be traveling. Hit him up if you want to train with him. Got any questions for him? I'll leave the information down below. Also, check out some of the watch straps that he's got going on. Really cool stuff. Also, link is down in the description. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you got any questions, let us know in the comments, and let us know what you're working on, what pitches you're working on, how you're trying to get these batters out. Thank you so much, guys. Talk to you in the next one.